Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Internet Roundup.
Yes, welcome.
That is Josh. I'm Chuck, and we do the Stuff You Should Know podcast, and once a week we round up the internet with a couple of neato stories, and this one just came over the wire.
Did it?
Came over the wire from NPR via a journal called Alcoholism, Clinical and Experimental Review.
Yeah.
Which is a real drag.
Yeah, that's
to read.
That's a somber journal.
What they did was
they don't have like cocktail recipes in the back.
No, I don't think so. How to Make the Perfect Manhattan by Josh. What they did was they took they did a study, and researchers looked at data from 672 pairs of adult twins, interviewed twice, a decade apart.
Yes.
Some fraternal, some identical.
This is a pretty. They suspect the genes might be at work, I think.
Yes, but they all shared the same environment. What they were looking to do was determine what your income and lifestyle had to do with your drinking patterns.
Right. And they did a great job controlling for all that stuff by interviewing twins.
Sure.
Fraternal twins and what's the other kind?
Identical.
Oh, yeah, identical twins.
Right.
And
those are fraternal.
10 years, right.
Yeah.
And 10 years apart. I mean, like it was pretty well-controlled study.
I agree.
And what they found is that their hypothesis was correct, that income has a greater impact on your drinking habits than your genes do.
Right.
And what they found was that if you're of a higher income level, you are more likely to be a drinker.
Yes.
But you're also more likely to moderate it.
That's right. And if you have a lower income, there's a lot more variation in how you drink. Some didn't drink at all.
Mm-hmm.
Some drank heavily.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you have more money, you're just going to drink more, but less.
Yeah, well,
does that make sense?
Yes. So, and they kind of took it another step further and said, well, what's behind this? And the idea is that, I guess they kind of were coming from the premise that it's like if you're well off, you are going to drink, but it's not going to be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be a moderate drinker.
Right.
Whereas if you're a lower income,
that instability,
you may not drink. But if you do drink, there's a pretty good likelihood that you're going to be a heavy drinker and it's going to be problematic.
Yeah.
And their position was that this is support that on a genetic level,
yeah,
the stresses of poverty can kick in coping strategies or things like alcoholism.
Absolutely.
So it's a weird, they did a weird loop around. I thought this article was one of the worst I've ever read in explaining things. Like
yeah.
It was
from NPR too. They do a pretty good job.
This was terrible.
It was not that good.
Yeah.
Or was it BBC?
I don't know. Either way, I would expect more.
Yeah.
Like I had to read it 5 or 6 times, and just the way that it was laid out and the way they explained
it was a little
it.
awkward. Maybe they were drunk.
They were, but they were from a higher income bracket, so it's cool.
Yeah, Emily and I, you make a little bit more money as you progress through your careers, and we got to a point where I was like, how about this? Less wine, better wine was the motto in our home.
I think another way to put that is quality over quantity, right?
Yeah, but we like less wine.
Less wine, better wine.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So maybe a little bit more per bottle, but not as many. We're not like drinking the Mad Dog every night like we used to do back in our younger days.
And then breaking the bottle over each other's heads.
That swill.
Man, Mad Dog, jeez.
I had that once back in college.
It is sweet stuff.
It's gross. I mean, can they even call that wine?
No.
It's just like fruity alcohol.
Pretty much.
Yeah, which is, I guess, what wine is.
Yeah.
All right, what's next, my friend?
My friend, we're going to go over briefly the story of one Reg Spears, a man who I imagine was born Reginald Spears.
Probably.
But back in the 60s, Reg Spears, who was, I believe, an Australian national.
Of course he was.
Living in London, somewhere in Great Britain, which includes London, we've been told. He found himself in a pickle. I think he needed to get back for his daughter or his kid's birthday.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the money to fly from Australia or from London to Australia.
It's an expensive plane ticket.
So he mailed himself.
He did. And oddly enough, he's not the first person to do this. They list people like Henry Bray, Johann Beck, and May Piersdorf. Is May a woman?
I would guess.
Okay. I was about to say, it seems like such a guy thing to do.
It does,
it's so
but
dumb.
Remember, one of the first people to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel and live was a woman.
That's right.
Remember, she had her cat with her.
She mailed herself from the top to the bottom.
Right.
So what happened here, the interesting thing I thought was that the cost of a plane ticket was actually less expensive than mailing, But he found a little loophole,
Mm-hmm.
which was called COD,
That's right.
at cash on delivery.
Yeah, and if he shipped himself to somebody who he knew wasn't going to be there to cough up the money, he could just kind of sneak out of his crate once he arrived in Australia, and that's exactly what he did.
That's right. He was put in a storage shed, and he got out, and he went home.
Yeah.
That was it.
And he made it to the party, and he had a heck of a story to tell.
That's right. So good for you, Reg Spears.
Sticking it to the man.
I imagine it's very dangerous, and I think we had the graphic up of the space of the box that he was in.
Oh, really?
Does not look comfortable.
No, that's Schrodinger's cat.
No. Very funny.
Thank you.
All right, so that's all we have this week here in the Internet Roundup headquarters.
The internet has been rounded up.
So we will see you next week.